Hey, true believers, Chris Mack coming at you with King Spawn number 2. And I have to say, I really enjoyed this book a lot more than issue 1. Because issue 1, it kind of built up on what's going on. And then it had a bunch of back issues of further Spawn stories, which was cool, and I enjoyed it. We had that moment with the gunslinger, which was absolutely phenomenal. But this one, finally, now that we kind of got all the preamble out of the way, we're focusing on the story. And it gets deeper and darker, and I like the way how Spawn just kind of, in a sense, unwillingly gets screwed. What do I mean by that? Let's dive into it. People working on this book, the script and plot is Sean Lewis with Todd McFarlane doing additional dialogue. Art is Javi Fernandez. Colors is FCO Placencia. Lettering is Ann World Design. Here's everyone else worked on the book. Spawn was created by Todd McFarlane. And if you remember from issue 1, there was a bombing that killed a bunch of innocent children. And as I said, being a father, that screws with you immensely. And they didn't really reveal who the villain behind it was. We just know that it was a religious cult looking for their king. Now this issue we open up and we see who's the man behind these machinations. If you don't want this spoiled, please go read issue 1 or check out the review we did and then come back and you're back. So this character's name is Kincaid. If that sounds familiar, Kincaid was a character, I believe it was way back in Spawn number 5 from the original run. And he was a child killer, amongst other things. Spawn chained him up and stabbed him to death with popsicles. It was a very violent scene. And so he's back from hell, and he's looking, sacrificing all these children. He said that our king must also be like us, willing to make an example, a sacrifice of the young souls that want so badly to be servants in his new order. That leader is Spawn, and yes, he shall come to our side because no one knows our king better than Kincaid. And even though this is disturbing to look at, it kind of has that uncanny valley feel where you're just a little too close to this face, it at least sets the tone of how wicked this villain is. And you just tell that this is really messing with Spawn. We get some backstory on Kincaid to a degree. But Spawn is not okay with everything going on, and he's kind of starts to pull like a Wolverine where he wants to kind of be on his own. Same like Batman, where something heavy like this happens, it weighs heavily on his soul, and you can just kind of see how it is. Spawn, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she's trying to help, and he's saying, leave me alone. And even though they're helping, he says, I got to find someone that I trust more than them. So we'll get into that in a second. And then we're introduced to these two kids that are, his name's Tom. He's living with his grandma. And you can tell he's not exactly the most wholesome of individuals. Neither is his girlfriend, as you can kind of pause and look at all the different stuff laying around his room and what she's holding in the middle of, So anyway, story aside, the artwork itself is gorgeous. Like, I love this panel here where Spawn is just looking out over the city. You kind of get that nice American flag. He's holding a big old gun. I'm not sure what that is. I don't think that's an AR-15 or an AK-47. If you guys can kind of recognize what gun that is, let me know down in the comments. But just very gorgeous artwork, and that's what I've always appreciated about Spawn comics, is even in the quiet moments, the artwork just really helps scream leaps and bounds and helps push the narrative along. Now, what I was talking about when Spawn said he needs to find someone he trusts more than his team, we kind of come to a relatively uneasy alliance between him and what's his name? His best friend that was I had it, and then right when we got to the panel, I forgot. It's not Terry, or at least I don't think it's Terry. How about we'll just read it together here. The only person that qualifies for that role might not want anything to do with me, and most of the time I feel the same. Current circumstances, though, tells me there's a mutual benefit in declaring a ceasefire. I'm hoping Terry will feel the same. So Terry was the one that married Wanda after Al Simmons' death. They had a daughter, Cyan, who Spawn couldn't give Wanda kids. And now, after Wanda's death, which I think, if you guys want to read it, I think it was Spawn Resurrection #1 is where she died. And so there's this really kind of bad blood between these two, and Cyan kind of blames Terry for Wanda's death. So she'll only talk to Al. And so Terry's like, I hate you for that. But because they both worked in the CIA together, at this point trying to figure out who this child killer is, they have to find out. They have to work together and put all that aside. And one thing I've always also enjoyed about Spawn is here they're kind of doing news outlets. There's this protest going on in D.C. about the bombing of the children and whatnot, and they, you know, how a lot of people are saying, oh, if you don't think there's politics in comics, then you've never read comics before. Well, there's a difference between, you know, kind of adding social commentary and then it just being like, feel like it's being preached at you to a degree. And it works in the context of this story because here this person for CRN is talking about how people are on unease with everything going on. This guy's talking about how everything that happened on January 6th in reality, how it's making everyone a little uneasy. And then we kind of get this guy who's like, who the hell cares what some elite actors have to say? These overpaid performers should stick to making their meaningless, mediocre drivel. And between their vegan shopping sprees, these kids are true patriots, and their marching should remind each and every one of you that these high school kids seem to understand what being a true American is all about. Those kids are more grown up than the majority of these so-called real grown-ups, and I applaud every damn step they take. So this is kind of a poke at Alex Jones. But it made me laugh, and I do kind of agree that, you know, a lot of times, you know, Hollywood elites and whatnot will talk about what they think, and you're just like, I don't really care 2 words what you have to say because you're just an actor. But anyway, I like how this works organically in the context of the comic book. And if you remember those Tom and his girlfriend that we were just talking about, and they said there, you know, there's this unease going on in this protest. Well, here they are, and they try to do the sacrificing of more children. And look at this gorgeous artwork when Spawn just comes out of nowhere looking like literal hell, like a demon from hell, just gorgeous work. This kind of reminds me of the quality when I used to read the old school Silvestri's Witchblade. The color palettes just remind me of that. Just beautiful, beautiful work. And the way that Spawn, you know, he lets his cape, you know, he lets everything that's part of his symbiote attack. He's just like, it was to deliver vengeance. Thinking about what he has to do to these 2 people, he's like, I wasn't too worried about saving the kids. It was to deliver vengeance, and swift and harsh as I could. The insanity being delivered from the fact that to save some children, I had to kill kids myself. And you're just kind of like, whoa, that kind of hit me. I was like, damn, that's deep. And he's like, first with chains. And then she used her phone as a detonator. I wrapped the girl on my cape, knowing that my cape would do something unimaginable. It devoured her. And just, whoa, the intensity. And then ate her soul. And then she says here, he said he'd corrupt you, make you kill children too. Now, if you remember what Kincaid said at the beginning of the book, I like how this kind of comes full circle as I just talked about. So guys, when you read the full context of this story, it kept me captivated. I was not bored at all reading this book. Everything felt organic. It flowed very well. I like how everything that's going on in this book, it's weighing heavy on Spawn. And again, you know, Todd McFarlane said that he kind of based Spawn sort of on Batman. And so seeing how this weighs heavy on Al Simmons, you know, just kind of wanting to be this loner, it works very well all around. So I'm glad that I picked up issue 2. I'm more than likely going to keep up with this series. What do you guys think? Are you enjoying what you're seeing with King Spawn? If you have, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and grab a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little Spawn bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. You can come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.